Good morning. What a lovely way to start our morning, singing about love, talking about love. Welcome to Pacific Unitarian Church. I'm Tracy Blender. I'm your worship associate for today. This cloudy day, it is a wonderful place to be, this church where we welcome diversity, where we welcome the ideas, thoughts, expansion, different beliefs, talking with each other, honoring each other's spaces, and learning how to expand ourselves to encompass it all. We sit on land that was once belonging to the Tongva people. We take care of this beautiful space that we have and the space around it. And we welcome you. If you're a first-time visitor to our church today, we are happy to have you here. We have childcare, we have religious education, we have food, we have music, we have fun. So we welcome you, and we have lunch after services. If it's your first time, lunch is on us. And I have a few announcements for us this morning. We have the upcoming Black and White. The Black and White is going to be on Saturday, March 2nd. I missed it last year and I regretted it terribly. So don't do that. Put it on your calendars. Tickets are on sale now. You can ask any choir member. The tickets look like that. It's 7 p.m. Saturday, March 2nd. Also, the anniversary party this year will be held after church services out on the patio. It's going to be on March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. It's our anniversary day. There's a lot going on that day. We'll have some music, we'll have food, we'll be out on the patio. And I am looking for sort of unsung heroes. We have so many volunteers here that do so many things. So many of them, sometimes you want to go, oh, I can't even name them. And then others where you want to go, I didn't know this person did that. I didn't know that person did that. I had no clue. It happens to me all the time. So in order to properly really thank some of our volunteers for things that we don't see, if you know of somebody who does something that sort of slides under the radar, or you see them doing, if you wouldn't mind emailing me, texting me, telling me when I have a pen in my hand, or Chloe, probably me, so that at the anniversary party we can properly really thank those people who keep this place the beautiful, wonderful place that it is. And I would like to bring up our own Rachel Bronke for our last announcements.
Buenos dias. Eso. So we have a couple of good events after church over the next couple of weeks. Next Sunday after church, and it'll be here, the Green Sanctuary is getting together with Social Justice, and we're having kids from Crenshaw High School that we have gone down there and done work. Raise your hand if you were on that field trip down to Crenshaw High, several. And we did work on their land. They're going to be coming up and doing work on our land in our garden. And so they'll probably be here during lunch, I hope maybe during the service, and doing and being with us. So that'll be really cool. And see Carolyn today if you're interested in getting involved. And that's part of kind of the idea of the Crenshaw to Crenshaw solidarity corridor that we're a part of creating there. And so the second one is 2 Sundays from today, and it's a San Pedro-based event, but Reverend Chloe is going to be at it and saying some words. Raise your hand if you're from San Pedro. A lot of our members, okay, or maybe down that area. So everyone's invited. 2 Sundays from now is the 100th anniversary of, the IWW, the International Workers of the World, was kind of a pre-union, very strong movement. It was in San Pedro, and it was before the ILWU, and they were having an event that was actually a fundraiser, and the local, 100 years ago, KKK group stormed their building, killed people, hurt people, pretty much destroyed the Wobblies, destroyed the IWW. We're going to reclaim that history and that space, and we're going to start at the space that was destroyed, and then we're going to have a procession 1 mile up to what unfortunately later become the KKK headquarters in San Pedro. And we're going to uncover this history and reclaim that space and talk about making it something different. So if you're interested in all that, come up, and I have flyers also afterwards. Thank you very much.
Everyone take a nice deep breath. That was a lot to take in. Thank you for bringing all that to us, Rachel. And now it's time for us to go ahead and light our chalice. And as we do this, we know we are entering into service. We are entering into our sacred space. Churches all over this country, and there are few Unitarian Universalist churches in other countries, light chalice on this day in order to begin their service. And we always need to remember that we are part of a much bigger community, that we don't stand here alone. There we go. I don't know how people do this, but I had to today, so there we go. Today, we're going to be talking about Descendants, and today we welcome our guest speaker, Lawrence, who will talk about his mixed Native American, Scottish, and Mexican background. He believes there's a need for more people to learn how to engage in complex conversations. Lawrence Ingalls has been a finance manager at Caltech for 15 years. He has an MBA from Pepperdine University, and he has been the in-person guest speaker for guest musician at 21 UU congregations in multiple states and several spiritualist churches online. Lawrence was raised in Los Angeles by a single mom who was a Spanish-speaking Native American Latina whose family is from Sonora, Mexico. Lawrence is a harpist and is also married to a UU minister. We look forward to hearing your reflection today, Lawrence. And now we have our opening hymn, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
Inspire
And now we welcome Cara Craig, Coordinator of Religious Education.
All right, kids are coming up. As they come up, I would like to make my own little announcement real quick. On Friday the 23rd, this Friday, I believe, there is a family fun night for all families with kids. We are having a parent meetup, which is parents only, so you get to have some adult time. And we're going to do a kickoff for the youth group. And and childcare is available too, of course. And so we hope that you'll be there. It's 6:30 to 9, I believe, yes. And there's flyers that should be available. I think they're in the back if you haven't gotten them. Okay. Hi, everybody. Quite a few of you today. That's awesome. Okay. I was going to talk about something today instead of reading a story. Have you ever heard the phrase, "Go get 'em, tiger"? Yeah, you have. Your dad says it to you. Yeah, it's a fun little saying. So last year, I was at the grocery store, and all of a sudden, this mug caught my eye. It's this tiger mug right here, and it says, "Go get 'em," but instead of saying tiger, it just has a picture of a tiger. And when I saw it, I just started laughing. I thought it was hilarious, and I don't know, something about this mug. I just loved it. But I talked myself out of getting it because, I mean, who doesn't have a million mugs, right? And so I didn't get it. And so then I didn't forget about it, though. I kept thinking about it. And then all of a sudden, I found myself looking at tiger mugs on Etsy and Amazon, and all of a sudden I had a wish list full of tiger mugs. And I mean, I've never really been all that into tigers, it's never been a thing for me, so I was like, that's weird. And then one day, I realized that I'm seeing tigers everywhere. Like, there's pictures of tigers here on TV and there, and I was like, why am I seeing so many tigers? Do you guys think I really was seeing more tigers? You don't think so? Yeah, I probably wasn't. I was just noticing tigers, right? That mug had got me thinking tigers. But why, right? I didn't know why. So I was like, maybe there's something to this. Is there some reason for tigers? And then I thought about, lots of cultures have the tradition of spirit animals, and where they believe that the animals symbolize something. Native American tribes have long held that animals are possessed with special powers and guidance. Have you heard about spirit animals? Yeah. So some examples are the bear is revered by a majority of Native Americans. Some characteristics of bears across most of the tribes is a balanced life, courage, inner strength, and healing. And then another one would be an example, would be the turtle. And the turtle symbolizes a long life, protection, healing, wisdom, spirituality, and fertility. And a lot of Native American cultures have the turtle as part of their creation story. So the turtle is carrying the earth on its back, which I thought was interesting. But then I was looking, and there wasn't really much about tigers when it came to spirit animals. Do you guys know why that might be? They're seen as mean. Well, I think there probably is a lot of actually kind of mean animals on there. I think the main reason might be because they probably didn't know that tigers existed, right? Because before back when it was just Native Americans here, tigers were not on the North American continent, so they didn't have them. So that really isn't like a spirit animal. So, but it's not really about, I didn't want to take on a spirit animal, because I'm not going to take on the Native American culture, but I like the idea of thinking maybe the tiger symbolizes something, right? So I looked at it, and I have a little book about spirit animals, and I decided to look up and see what tiger said. Does anyone have any ideas of what traits a tiger might symbolize? Strong, yeah. Anybody else? No? Brave. Yeah, I think you're right. Brave is a big one, yes. What my little book said was, physically strong and streamlined, tigers know the range of their power. Their senses are keen, their movements assertive and commanding, yet fluid, and responsive too. Tiger's stripes symbolize a strongly balanced composure. Tiger helps us to move and act with greater self-assurance by reminding us of our own inner strength. Watching tiger is a lesson in how to integrate intensity with sensitivity, power, and poise. So yeah, it's about having courage and being brave and being strong. And you know, at the time that I was seeing all these tigers, I was going through a really challenging time in my life. And I was feeling scared, and I was feeling like I wasn't strong enough, and I was feeling like I wasn't going to be able to get through it on my own. And I realized that I really needed all the things that tigers had, right? So I rushed myself back to that grocery store, and I bought this tiger mug. Yes. And every morning I drank my coffee out of this tiger mug, and I looked at this tiger, and I thought he was staring at me. And he looked at me like, "You can do this." And I thought, I can be like you, tiger, I can do this. And every day I felt a little bit stronger and a little braver, and I got through it, and I did awesome. And I don't see tigers everywhere anymore, but I still feel like I have tiger in me, like I'm gonna carry tiger with me forever. So I think like we could all learn from this, you know? Like tiger really helped me, like his traits really helped me. So I'm wondering if maybe there's an animal that stands out in your guys' life, like an animal that you're just really drawn to, or maybe you have had dreams about, or you think about, or you like, or maybe even an animal that you don't like, but that just seems to kind of like be there all the time. Maybe that animal has something to teach you. So maybe that's what we're going to do now. We're going to, as we sing us out, we're going to think about what animals might have something to help us, you know, get through difficult times or any time, really. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. Now is the time where we get to share with everyone what is in our hearts, a joy, a concern, or maybe you'll just come and light a candle and your words will remain unspoken. candle for all that remains unspoken. I wanted to share this. It's called The Embodiment of Abundant Love. And this was written by Karen Johnston. In our lived lives, family comes in different shapes and sizes and constellations. It is in this variety, this diversity, that our lives are made fuller and our individual selves made more whole. It is in this variety, in this diversity, that we look back to the ancestors, recognizing no monolith, but instead a rich texture that informs the foundations beneath us. It is in this variety, in this diversity, that we perceive forward to the future, choosing to be good ancestors ourselves rather than dutiful descendants. If we live our lives in recognition of this truth, there's no reason to act as if this is not true in death. Let us live into the truth so many of us lean on in times of loss, that love lives on even in death. As this is the truth of this family in life, so it is true for the family in mourning, giving free rein to all who willingly offer themselves as voice and embodiment of abundant love. So may it be true for all.
Good morning, muy buenos dias. I misunderstood the order of service, so I didn't prepare a reading today, but I have two things I can tell you in this slot, and those two things are this. I have sung in choirs and I've done musical theater since I was 12 years old, and I'll be 58 next month, and I still sing in choirs and I still do musical theater. So I didn't know how today was gonna go. I drove up here from Orange County, and we UUs are a mixed lot, right? So I came in and the choir was rehearsing, and it just set the tone for my day. It was great, and they were just rehearsing. So if I could have live people singing to me live every morning, like that would be the perfect way to start every day. Unlikely, but it would be wonderful. So there's that. The other thing I want to point out to you, which will be relevant in the reflection I'm going to do, is the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. Because most people, I've handled other people's money since the 1980s, and I've realized most people don't realize how much more 1 billion is than 1 million. So I want to highlight that for you by telling you this. 1 million seconds is equal to about 12 days. 1 million seconds, 12 days. A billion seconds is 31 years. That's how much more a billion is than a million. And I think that really drives it home for people, like it's a much bigger number than people realize. So that's the difference between a million and a billion, and we can go to the centering hymn now, because that's all I have to say. And thank you. So, my father's family, the Ingalls family, landed on this continent 6 years after the Mayflower, so just shy of 400 years ago, what many people would call a good long time. My mother's family has been here for about 20,000 years, if anthropologists are to be believed about indigenous peoples. I am the descendant of both conquerors and the conquered. Culturally, I'm Latino. I never knew my father, and I grew up with my mother's Mexican family in Los Angeles County. However, when I was 5 years old, my mom got involved with a religious group that mixed Hopi Native American and Far Eastern Indian beliefs and teachings. And after a few years of attending regular services there with this group, a bunch of us moved to a commune together in rural Arizona, located between a Navajo reservation and a Yavapai reservation. Cultural misappropriation is, among other things, the taking of intellectual property, traditional knowledge, cultural expressions, or artifacts from someone else's culture without permission. We were not doing that in this commune because we did have permission from and a relationship with the Hopi. So, perfect. So this slide is it's a picture of the Escalante Canyon in Utah. It eventually joins up with the Grand Canyon. Journeying on a 3-week-long backpacking hike, sleeping under the stars every night in this canyon near Hopi lands. For the first time in my life, I looked up and I saw a massive blanket of stars that I had never seen before. We were hundreds of miles from civilization, and there were no city lights at all to affect our view of the stars, and it was stunning. While we were hiking through this canyon, we all took new names in an evening ceremony out there in the wilderness by the light of a large bonfire. Within that group and in the commune, from the ages of 9 to 14, I went exclusively by the name Navachi, affectionately shortened to Navach. We can go to the next slide. For context, this is me during my undergrad volleyball days. Because of my genetics, I get very dark if I spend any amount of time in the sun. This should tell you how much time I spend in an office. My point is this: I do own mirrors. I do know I'm usually pale enough to pass for white. So I want you to picture a dark-skinned, shirtless little Navachi with shoulder-length hair running around the Arizona desert shouting at his mother in Spanish about each new and exciting discovery and subsisting on a diet of Navajo fry bread, tamales and beans, and cheeseburgers. That was my childhood. It was not a typical American upbringing. It's not that unusual to be both Latino and Native American, and in fact, I was pleasantly surprised to discover through a genetic test that my mom was fully 1/3 Native American. We didn't know that until after she died. Ancestry.com can narrow down your indigenous genetics to a specific geography. Mine, it turns out, are Arizona and Mexico. And being Arizona, that means that they were most likely either Hopi or Navajo or Apache or Zuni. The Hopi tribe was so influential in my upbringing, purely by coincidence, that Hopi values continue to inform my beliefs and my decision-making to this day. So it's really great having an actual genetic connection to the Pueblo tribes, even though we don't know specifically which one we are. I self-identify as Native American and Latino because it's both genetically correct, but also because I grew up so influenced by the Hopi. It's aggravating to me and others of indigenous descent when we hear people complaining about immigrants and borders and who should be here and who should not be here. I also find it kind of triggering when I hear North Americans discussing conflicts or outright wars in other countries, and they talk about how one group of people should basically get off the land of another group. I just can't imagine any one of those North Americans signing over their own homes or where they gather for worship or where they own businesses and giving that back to Native Americans. I don't ever see that that scenario is going to play out. In many conflicts, who is wrong is determined by the date you start looking at behavior. I'm not going to get into the specifics of North American history or current world politics, but this is what I know. All claims to land are temporary. Even if your people have been on land for 20,000 years, like my family have lived here for 20,000 years in what is currently called California and Arizona, that before that was called the Western Territories of the United States, before that it was called Mexico, before that it was called New Spain, and before that it was just called home by my family for 20,000 years. All claims to land are ultimately temporary. Here's the thing that millions of people all over the world do not want to hear. If your children's children, 30 generations from now, that's about 900, 1,000 years, if they still speak your language and still practice your religion and still hold your same culture, they will not have done so in peace or safety. The bitter pill, if you must characterize it negatively, the bitter pill of living in peace where your family's children can prosper for generations is being a genetic and cultural mishmash of, for example, Navajo, Scottish, and Mexican. My family has prospered in safety for generations now, no longer being purely any one thing. My pagan Scottish ancestors, 100 generations ago, never dreamed that their descendants, 50 generations later, would turn their backs on the old ways, would become something called Catholic, and would speak English instead of Gaelic. Those Catholic Scottish ancestors of mine 50 generations ago never dreamed that I would speak Spanish and hold Hopi Native American values and practices that are much more in line with their own ancestors' beliefs and practices than anything that looks like Catholicism. The very human, very powerful desire to hold in your family the same language, the same religion, the same culture forever, for all of eternity, is not workable. Living in peace means both changing yourself and also changing your descendants. Today, if you are white and you speak English and you belong to a biblical religion, and you truly, in your heart, you want your children's children, 30 generations from now, to live in peace and safety, it's entirely possible that those descendants may look like African Buddhists who speak Korean. Nobody knows what 900 years from now is going to look like. But I'm certain that if 30 generations from now your children's children still look like you, still speak your language, still hold your same religion, that does not happen in peace. That happens by rigidly holding to certain ideas no matter what the circumstances. My mom's mom was the oldest of 7 or 8 children, so I have a ton of great aunts and uncles, regular aunts and uncles, and first, second, and third cousins. But I'm the only one in my generation or later who still speaks Spanish. A few years before my grandma died, I observed out loud that when my mom and her sisters die, I'll be the very last native Spanish speaker in my entire family. When I was born, a majority of the family was Spanish speaking. My grandmother shook her head and very quietly, almost just to herself, she said, "Pues?" Supongo que estamos siendo borrados. Which means, well, I guess we're just being erased. She looked so sad and defeated when she said that. My grandmother was a fiery, powerful woman, and seeing her look so defeated really made an impression on me. I'm certain that there are millions of people all over the world who feel similarly that if their children's children, however many generations later, don't look like them or speak their language or hold their culture, that they feel they're being erased. So maybe I'm a little bit reluctant to put a cheery spin on my own multiracial, multicultural identity. On the other hand, I do exist. I'm the living embodiment of what scientists call heterosis, or hybrid vigor, or outbreeding enhancement. Basically, that means my genetic diversity makes me generally healthier and able to fight disease than a purebred. And while I do, sometimes I feel the absence of a centuries-long connection with both my Native American and Scottish ancestors. It's my choice whether I choose to focus on that lack or instead to focus on the richness that is my genetic and cultural diversity, and I choose the richness. It's fascinating to me how I've seen ancestors deep in the past call out to the current generation. My mother, who believed herself to be a Los Angeles Latina, was powerfully drawn to Native American art and culture, having no idea that she herself was the third Native American. The Hopi connection was a huge part of the attraction of our moving to that commune in Arizona. Because of the Hopi influence on my upbringing, it has always been normal for me to talk out loud to my ancestors, which now includes all of my parents and my grandparents. As soon as I got the email that showed that my Native American ancestors were specifically located in Arizona, I knew from my childhood there that that meant either Hopi, Navajo, Apache, or Zuni. So I was saying out loud to my parents and my grandparents and all of my ancestors, I really want to figure this out, you guys. So the next morning, I get up, I'm driving through rural Texas at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm out on this highway in the middle of nowhere and the light turns red. So I stop, and I'm really annoyed because I'm at this light and there's nothing for miles, and I'm sitting at this red light. And I look up and I saw the street sign where I had been stopped, and I took this picture through the windshield. So I'm staring up at Navajo Road, and I literally laughed out loud, and I said out loud to my parents and grandparents, "Good one." According to Google, there are nearly 16 million intersections in the United States, but this is the one I got stopped at 6:30 in the morning, in the middle of nowhere, purely by coincidence. I've always spoken pretty freely about these kinds of experiences because they happen to me a lot. And I was well into my 20s before I realized that the average white person was humoring me, or believed that I engaged in magical thinking, or quietly suspected that I had mental health issues. When I've been asked, "You don't really believe in spirits and that kind of thing, right? I mean, you work at Caltech, you have a master's degree." My standard response is, I actually do. Either that or my being stopped at that intersection was a 1 in 16 million coincidence piled on top of numerous other coincidences just like it. That kind of thing really does happen to me all the time. Here's the thing, I'm not white. I'm very pale. But even at that, my life experience raised by a single Latina mom in a Mexican family automatically gives me a very different perspective on life than the average you. Then you throw in the whole commune connected to the Hopi tribe thing, and I think many of you would be surprised at what I believe because of what I've experienced. My older brothers are much older than I, and they grew up near San Francisco on our father's side of the family in a time when children regularly played cowboys and Indians. One of my brothers was always staunchly an Indian. He's by far the darkest complected of all of us. And when we moved to Arizona, he was already a young adult. And we all noticed how much he looked like the Navajo guys who would regularly come into town. Because we didn't yet know about our own Native American genetics, we thought the Navajo guys looked surprisingly Mexican. That's how we made sense of that in our own minds. So if you go to the next picture, of these two pictures, on the left is where we lived in Arizona. Our house was just a few hundred yards from Willow Lake. And on the right is the Escalante Canyon in Utah, where we would journey to be near Hopi lands, and where the first time there I took the name Navachi. The Hopi Reservation and the Escalante Canyon are each near the borders of what's currently called Arizona and Utah. Previous to this, I grew up just south of Pasadena and east of East LA. It was very urban. And I was perfectly at home out there in the wilderness from the ages of 9 to 14. Just under the smaller arch you see in the middle there, that smaller arch is several stories high. The picture doesn't really do it justice. That's where, for the first time in my life, I ran around completely naked outside during what was supposed to be bath time, but what ended up being the first of many nudist romps up and down that riverbank. It took us 3 weeks to hike through that canyon. I was only 9 years old the first time, and I was pretty much covered in mud by the end of every single day. And let me tell you, in my teens, I cried and I raged against returning to Los Angeles when my mother announced we were moving back. I adjusted quickly. But I remember our first day back in the Los Angeles area. I looked at the asphalt streets and the concrete sidewalks and the brick buildings, and I thought, everything here is dead. As the descendant of both conquerors and the conquered, it's impossible for me to impartially judge my very existence. I'm openly biased in favor of my own life. At the same time, I'm certain I have ancestors who would have wished I were still purely Native American or still purely Scottish. Perhaps especially those more recent ancestors who may have slaughtered each other on this continent. I have 2 parents, double that and I have 4 grandparents, double that and I have 8 great-grandparents, right? If I keep doubling it that way, just 20 generations back, I have more than 1 million ancestors. 30 generations back, and I have more than 1 billion. And that's only the last 1,000 years, and that doesn't include any of their siblings or their other children. They're all dead, and every single one of them continues through me. Our languages have changed, our lands have changed, our customs have changed. I live in a world where it's no big deal that people have walked on the moon, where children can watch live video feeds, not from all the way across the country, but from the planet Mars. I am the leading edge of everything my ancestors could have created. And as the youngest of 3 brothers on my mom's side, and none of us has any children, I'm also where we all come to an end. I am the final culmination of all of us. And that is as it should be, because nothing physical continues in the same form for all of eternity. Ever increasingly, it seems to me, we are expected in all situations to pick a side, throwing details and nuance to the winds in favor of sound bites and memes. Instead of simplifying conflicts by demanding people pick sides, what if, instead, there were an emphasis on teaching people how to have complex conversations? Instead of characterizing calls for peace as the calls for the destruction of one group or another, what we should all be doing is rallying for peace and safety, full stop. Calling for peace and safety for all is not a radical idea. But I keep seeing this enforced divide play out again and again in everything from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to school shootings. The ridiculous truth of just 30 generations equaling 1 billion people is that if we don't already share ancestors with the people that we hate, we're almost certainly going to share descendants. Our children's children and their children's children will literally be the same people. And we owe it to those people, to our own children's children, to learn that skill of complex conversations. Most of my friends and acquaintances are liberal to very liberal, but most of my relatives are not. My husband and I are both the liberal nut jobs in each of our respective conservative families. So we don't have the luxury of living in a liberal bubble. You don't know how I envy those of you who were born into liberal families and you turned around and married into liberal families. What is that like? It is agonizing to grow up loving an older relative who you realize in your adult life is and always has been a racist or misogynist or homophobic. You don't just stop loving them. That's not how it works. It is agonizing. I'm still learning this skill of complex conversations. It's so much easier to torture people with my words, especially when they've offended me or they've hurt my feelings. But that doesn't really move anything forward. It's gratifying in the moment, but I think my commitment for 2024 is going to have to be delayed gratification and greater engagement with people who I find challenging. I know from my own conservative loved ones that some people can't hold conflicting ideas as equal. They can't sit with ambiguity. I used to dismiss them as just not wanting to, or worse, really knowing what was true and choosing to be willfully ignorant. I've come to believe that it's not willful ignorance, it's lack of ability, and certainty is comforting. Life is ambiguous and uncertain for a lot of people, maybe for most people, and in my opinion, people all over the world, not just in this country, are attracted to very rigid, black and white view of the world, churches and politicians, for the distinct lack of ambiguity that they offer. This is right, period. That is wrong, period. Certainty is comforting. And liberal communities, certainly UU communities, aren't just comfortable with ambiguity, it's often what we offer in sermons and promote as a general mindset. Of my most immediate ancestors, my parents and my grandparents, 3 of those 6 people could not have learned the skill of complex conversations. But I believe that I can, eventually. I believe when you are thrown in together with people in a terrible situation, and you're the one with greater physical strength, or more money, or more youth, or more brains, it's on you to improve that situation for yourself and the others that you're thrown in with. And being punitive in a terrible situation when you're either stronger, richer, healthier, smarter, that's just being a jerk. It's on you. It's on me. It is on all liberal communities. I truly believe the people who are most likely to be able to learn the skill of complex conversations are liberals. And that is and always has been, proudly, us. Thank you for listening to me this morning.
Well, I'm going to go on YouTube and listen to that again. It's time for our offertory. In honor of Black History Month, PUC will share our split plate this Sunday with the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. According to their website, BLUU is committed to expanding the power and capacity of Black UUs within Unitarian Universalism, providing support, information, and resources for Black Unitarian Universalists, and justice-making and liberation for Black people throughout our faith. We are grateful for your continued gift to PUC. And if you would like to give online today, you can scan the QR code that is in your order of service, or to give with PayPal. And if anybody's confused about how to do that, there's tons of people to ask. I can't point to one right now.
Good morning. We're going to sing a piece called "Morning Noiseless." The lyrics are from our gray hymnal, actually, and there are a million words in it. So I'm going to recite the poem because it's such a beautiful poem. The music is by John Coltrane. The morning noiseless flings its gold, and still is evening's pace, and silently the earth is rolled amid the vast of space. Night moves silent round the pole, and stars sing on unheard. Their music pierces to the soul, yet borrows not a word. In quietude, the spirit grows and deepens hour to hour. In calm eternal onward flows its all-redeeming power. Attend, O soul, and hear at length the Spirit's silent voice. In stillness labor, wait in strength, and confident rejoice.
And now we're going to go into our closing hymn, number 1051. We Are. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences, beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us all forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to that unity.
May the blessing of love be upon you. May love's peace abide with you. May love's presence illuminate your hearts, now and forevermore. So be it. Amen. Shalom. Salam. Namaste. And blessed be. And now our service truly begins.
Empty lot.